Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this month's Professional Development Program, Mental Health in Our Current Environment. I'm Cheryl Seminara, and I'm going to introduce our host, and closing out the session will be Claire Goodwich. So let's talk a little bit about our host. Dr. Mercedes Ebank is co-founder of the Mecca Group, LLC. Dr. Ebanks has an extensive background as a crisis coordinator with educational settings in mental health facilities. She has worked with public, private, and alternative schools, in addition to serving several years with social service organizations in the Washington, D.C. area. She has served on boards and committees of nonprofit organizations and been a longstanding member of local and national professional organizations. Dr. Ebanks serves as an associate professor in the Department of Psychoeducational Studies in the School of Education at Howard University. Currently, she serves as faculty with the APA-approved doctoral training program in counseling psychology and formerly served as a program coordinator for the master's program in counseling services for over a decade. She has published articles on the effects of corrective feedback to treat destructive behavior, the impact of race and school environment that influences teachers' attitudes and behavior, and evaluating test preparation program for minority students. Dr. Ebanks is of Cuban descent and a native of New Jersey. She is a proud mother of 2 young daughters and resides in Prince George's County in Maryland. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming Dr. Ebanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all those accolades. I didn't really remember even doing half those things, especially during this past year. But today it's my pleasure to speak with you all about mental health in our current environment. As Cheryl stated, I'm a professor at Howard University, as well as co-founder of the Mecca Group. My partner and I started the Mecca Group 15 years ago because we wanted to make sure that we were providing mental health education, careers, consultations, and assessment with multicultural sensitivity. Today, we're going to have a brief introduction, as well as talk about the effects of the pandemic, review some therapeutic techniques, as well as do an activity. Cheryl did such a good job introducing me that I won't go through all of these. But however, I just wanted to talk that we all have a professional side, then we also have a personal side. And especially during this past year, it was very difficult to keep a balance between them. Ellen DeGeneres stated, "It's our challenges and obstacles that give us layers of depth and makes us interesting." And this year, certainly, there were many that faced many challenges and obstacles. So I would like you all to just put in the chat, who do we have in the room today? You can state your name, your position, a hobby, but identify yourself with 2 or 3 words. And then Claire, if you could just let me know who's in the room.
A CLO.
Wonderful.
A CEO, a fellow Cuban, a vegan, a strategist, a training program manager, a director of marketing, travel, a training support specialist, someone who loves the outdoors.
Wonderful.
A training officer.
Good. Wonderful. So we have a variety of individuals that shared their personal, how they identify themselves personally as well as professionally. So what do you want to take away from today? How is this going to be different than anything you have read, heard, or watched this past year? Actually, it may not be too different, but I'm hoping that the presentation and you can walk away with at least one new thing that you're going to try. Because especially during this past year, there has been a heightened awareness on mental health and the need for services. Even within our practice, our psychological service agency, we certainly have seen a spike in request for services. And we have been able to help a number of clients through these very difficult, challenging times. So our objective today is to identify what is happening, discuss how it has affected you, recognize the impact, conceptualize solutions, and devise a plan of action. And I'm certain because of all of the titles that Claire has shared, that you already do that in your professional life, but now is knowing how to implement those in your personal life as well. The pandemic has had several effects on individuals. It has caused people to burn out, having to multitask and juggle. I have always said that I didn't want to be a stay-at-home mom. I've always worked, but I became a stay-at-home mom and a working mom, as well as a teacher's aide, a lunch aide, and many times I've failed in those positions. It has also caused intolerance, a short fuse for many, frustration, uncertainty of the future, relationships issues that existed, but now again, because of the pandemic, they became either heightened, health and safety concerns due to pre-existing conditions, or having family members or children with pre-existing conditions. There has certainly been an elevated worry about how to keep them safe. There's been a lack of work-life balance because your dining room table now became your conference room. Your dining room table or kitchen table might have become your classroom. So there was little to do with separating life and work because we were no longer coming home after a long day of work. You were home doing a long day of work. Then there were financial concerns, food shortages, elevated bills that certainly have caused a strain on many. Unfortunately, many who have lost their positions have been laid off as a result of their positions no longer being needed. Then there were the societal stressors and the civil unrest that was either witnessed on television or personally within your community that certainly caused a new sense of concern of what the future is to bring. Then there was emotional exhaustion. Your mind was racing. You were not getting enough sleep. You were just emotionally exhausted, but could not fall asleep. A sense of helplessness because there was no control. The news was changing constantly about what to do and what not to do, when to do it, when not to do it, conflicting information, conflicting statistics. So there was a sense of what to do when you could not do anything. And then many neglected themselves. They were so worried about taking care of others that they were neglecting themselves. Many heard during the pandemic these two diagnoses, depression and anxiety, but truly didn't understand what that meant. There were people who have felt these diagnoses prior to the, or exhibited symptoms of these diagnoses prior to the pandemic. And then there were those that had already been diagnosed with depression and anxiety. And because of the pandemic, it even elevated. So just to go over what is depression. Depression, you have to experience 5 symptoms during the same 2-week period that change from previous functionings. Those symptoms could be depressed mood, loss of interest or pleasure, weight loss or gain, and these are from the extremes, insomnia or hypersomnia, psychomotor agitation and retardation, fatigue, feeling worthless, excessive inappropriate guilt, decreased concentration, and thoughts of death or suicide. Anxiety. There are major types of anxiety disorders. Excessive worries over a 6-month period, along with restlessness and feeling on edge, easily fatigued, difficulty concentrating, your mind going blank, irritability, muscle tension, and sleep disturbances. Now, for many people, they had exhibited some of these behaviors prior to the pandemic. And I always say that at some point in most people's life, they might experience these symptoms. But again, the key is the period of time, the onset of these behaviors that they begin, what are the triggers, and understanding that, and then how the individual is coping and how these symptoms are impacting their life. There was an increase in the diagnosis of anxiety and depression for children up to 20 to 25%, 20% of anxiety and 25% it was elevated for youth. Now for those who've had children or grandchildren or nieces and nephews, what children were experiencing were perhaps cyberbullying, an increased amount of time on social media. Therefore, the images that they were viewing over and over again could have been impacting their thought process. They felt isolated because they could no longer go over to their buddy's house or their bestie's, house. There was additional time on technology because they were in virtual school and they were in school all day, and now having to do homework again, and that was their only form of communicating with their friends were through FaceTime. There was a disruption in their life, perhaps not being able to visit family members, or even in a co-parenting relationship, not being able to see the other non-residential parent because of their line of work, or even being able to commute. There was certainly a lack of physical exercise, especially during the winter months when children could not go outside and play in their yards. There were some children that experienced learning difficulty because of the pandemic and the virtual school. I know that many schools had difficulty with access, or families having access to Wi-Fi or computers, technology issues in terms of connection. So these are what now parents are seeing their children are going through. And as adults, we are caring for others, whether it is based on our position in our workplace, our family, perhaps elders, as well as caring for infants or children, and then caring for friends and other family members. Maya Angelou stated, "I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." I feel that that's a very important quote, because again, it just indicates that, to me, as I interpret it, that that the words that you use, the time that you spend with someone is really what impacts the person the most. And again, we're giving of ourselves to others, and we have to make sure that we're giving to ourselves as well. What many people were experiencing, and as you registered for this seminar, is compassion fatigue. Although you might have said you could relate to the symptoms of depression and anxiety, a lot of it was compassion fatigue. You were so much taking care of others that you forgot to take care of yourself. What is compassion fatigue? Compassion fatigue is defined as the emotional, mental, and physical exhaustion that comes from caring for traumatized others, also known as secondary traumatic stress. For many healthcare workers, they experience this. For many teachers, they've experienced this. And for either, as some of you have indicated, your CEOs, CFOs, COOs, you are in a position that in HR, that you are caring for others in the sense that you're also caring for their families, because you're trying to make sure that the business stays afloat so that your employees can care for their families. Teachers experience this, as I stated, so do social healthcare workers. Psychologists experience this many times, because they experience that the distress, even after interacting with the traumatized person, it still becomes part of you. So some of the symptoms are very similar to what you see in depression and in anxiety. Irritability, anxiety, agitation, frustration, and anger, depersonalization and feeling disconnected from others, decreased feelings of empathy and sympathy, as well as increased and chronic psychological and emotional fatigue. Basically, kind of wanting to veg out and not do anything because you're so emotionally tired. So you might mask it by saying you can't sleep, so you're going to take melatonin. Or you want to binge watch Netflix because you don't want to focus on anything else. People will have said, oh, it's COVID weight. Well, it was an escape for some individuals, because this is how they were coping with feeling disconnected from others. Some of the other symptoms are difficulties in interpersonal relationships, apathy or disinterest or dread relating to working for or taking care of others. So at this point, you're not wanting to do it anymore, but you know that you have to continue doing it. Physiological and physical discomfort. Again, you might start feeling psychosomatic. So you start having back pains or headaches, or your limbs are going feeling a little numb, or your stomach is upset. These all can be related to compassion fatigue. And then noticing thoughts about being unfulfilled in the role of your profession. You're doing so much that sometimes you're thinking, why? What is this going to get me? So how do you deal with compassion fatigue? You certainly want to do the reverse of what you are experiencing and feeling. So you want to nurture close friendships. So you want to schedule time to hang out with friends, even with colleagues, perhaps checking in during the workday, having lunch dates. You no longer can go out and, grab a bite to eat during lunch, but perhaps still kind of doing that virtually. Because from my understanding, many of you might still be working remotely. So therefore, you haven't transitioned fully into the office. And so perhaps some coworkers have transitioned back into the office. So how can you still stay connected with them? Don't bury the negative feelings. Share how you feel with someone you trust, such as a friend, a family member, or a counselor. Many people feel guilty about feeling exhausted and feeling a disinterest in wanting to help others, but it's okay. It's been a result of you doing so much. Develop your talents. What else do you like to do besides what you're doing in your profession? Finding a hobby, taking a new class, cooking or photography. What is it that you enjoy to do? Reading. I was sharing earlier that I started to walk, and I love music, but I actually started to walk around my neighborhood with my AirPods in, but without any music, because I wanted to just enjoy silence or just the natural sounds. Other ways to deal with compassion fatigue: re-engage in the arts, listening to inspirational music, expressing yourself artistically, letting those creative juices flow. I'm sure we have some talented singers or artists here. You talked about yourself professionally, but certainly want to know about your creative side as well. Elevate how news affects you. Watching CNN repeatedly, you certainly want to be in tune, but you don't want to be overwhelmed. So getting those little snippets of news and knowing when to turn it off. Practice mindfulness. Research shows that practicing mindfulness prevents emotional drain. Take a few minutes to clear your mind by focusing on your breathing or what you see, hear, feel, and smell. Earlier, it was shared about meditation and how that helps to just silence your world for a few minutes. And other forms are effective journaling. Writing down your thoughts and feelings can be very therapeutic. If you don't like writing, you can also keep an audio or a video journal using your phone or computer. We see it on reality TV all the time, the video blogs. You could do it yourself. Certainly just take a few minutes to kind of share your thoughts. Keep your recordings so you can reflect back on them. Or just let it out. Releasing it is the most important thing. Some individuals like to write it down, then tear it up and throw it away because it is in their past. Get enough sleep. Set an alarm or find a way to keep track of the time so you don't stay up too late. Certainly trying to get 7 and 8 hours of sleep. For some, that may not be necessarily doable, but you may want to slowly start increasing, figuring out how you can go from 4 hours of sleep to 7 hours of sleep, and changing your schedule a little bit so you can just do smaller increments of increasing the amount of sleep that you get, instead of trying to jump from 4 hours to no, I was told I need to get 8 hours. Now I'm going to force myself to get 8 hours. And then also showing gratitude. And we're going to talk about this a little bit more. And writing down and posting perhaps on social media about what you're grateful for. Many times people share on social media the problems, but share what is going well. How to manage your mental health. I certainly encourage to get a proper diagnosis if you or a loved one is feeling any of the symptoms of depression, anxiety, or any other disorder that they cannot pinpoint. And so you certainly want to seek professional advice or assistance in this. You can go through your insurance company to find a proper provider. You can certainly, there are a lot of websites such as Psychology Today, the American Association of, the American Psychology Association, the American Counselor Association. Those all have a listserv of potential providers. Also, you want to make certain that you get a proper evaluation and that it is culturally responsive and culturally sensitive, and that it is not only looking at your symptoms, but looking at who you are. Who are you? Because when providing treatment, we understand as therapists that everyone has a different story. They might have similar circumstances, but everyone's story is different. And therefore, to understand the uniqueness of every individual is very important. So with the evaluation, there is a in-depth interview that occurs so that a proper diagnosis can be made. Also, it's good to start logging your own behaviors, kind of figuring out when you start to feel a certain way. Looking at your family history is also very important. Some people are in denial of what their parents went through or their grandparents went through or an aunt and uncle, but there is research that shows that mental health disorders are linked genetically. So you want to make certain that it is treated. Also, receiving treatment, you want to look at all of the options, whether or not medication is being prescribed, and making certain that you are following the prescription as prescribed, that there's medication monitoring being done with it, as well as what type of therapy is best for you. Do you want to do individual therapy, perhaps couple counseling, or group therapy? Group therapy is certainly a very cost-effective, as well as an opportunity to be in a room with others that are going through similar circumstances or similar feelings as you are. And again, not feeling that you're the only one. Then there's many holistic options: mindfulness, meditation, yoga. Those can all be incorporated as part of your treatment. Bibliotherapy, art therapy. Now, other recommendations that we're going to also talk about are, as I said, journaling, limiting the disruptions before sleep. Certainly we know those phones. Our phones are usually now right by our bedsides. Our phone are now our alarm clock. They are, everything to us. But the notifications can certainly be disruptive to your sleep. The blue light or the white light from the phones can certainly be disruptive. The constant, even having it too close to your bed, the energy level, it can be disruptive. So you want to figure out what is it that you need to do to lessen the disruptions when you are sleeping. Also, figuring out a routine, group activities, allowing yourself time, finding what relaxes you. What relaxes you? Is it a candle? Is it gardening? Is it taking a walk? Is it cooking? What is it that relaxes you? And then also monitoring your food intake, perhaps consulting with a nutritionist could be helpful as well. It is very important to recharge by disconnecting. We want to disconnect from our phones. Figure out what period of the day you could just separate yourself from your phone. I know during the workday you can't do that, perhaps because you're having meetings, but when you sign off of work, make certain that you sign off of the phone and that you don't check it for a period of time. And that then becomes your routine, that me time, that time that you can set aside for yourself, that you are either connecting with your spouse, connecting with your pet, connecting with your children or other loved ones, is most importantly, connecting with yourself. You have to prioritize yourself first in order to get to that finish line. So with every new year, stress might come about, but you also know what are some of the common challenges. So self-care is truly what allows you to be successful and amazing at what you do. Making sure that you prioritize self-care. Then you continue your self-care practice for the long-term benefits. Practice gratitude. I had mentioned this earlier, and there are research that shows that higher levels of gratitude correlate to more restful sleep and lower instances of anxiety and depression. Building an intention practice can help you to remember to take care of themselves when things get busy. Once you start seeing things to be grateful for, your brain starts looking for more things to be grateful for. So in the evening, jot down what you're grateful for. If you pray for what you're grateful for. If you just in the beginning of your morning, say what you're grateful for, but mentally prepare yourself for that new beginning every day. Get organized. Get ahead by getting organized. Feeling prepared and organized can go a long way towards ensuring a smooth start to the year. And this is a new year. You know, every day is a new day, and we don't have to wait until January 1st, 2022 to say this is a new year. This is a new school year for many children, going back into the classroom. This might be the new anniversary year or time for couples' birthdays. It starts the new year. So making sure that you bring it in, not making necessarily resolutions, but what is it that you're going to, work on, and organizing that could certainly be one of them. Having a clean workspace, the clear to-do list, and a manageable calendar. Do not make a list of 1,000 things that you think you're going to accomplish during that day. You can, again, have short-term and long-term goals. There might be things that you have to accomplish for the month, the week, as well as the day, and separating those, because we can become intimidated by seeing a long laundry list of things to do when some of those things don't have to happen that day, but maybe by a certain target date. List how to help to organize and contain a sense of inner chaos, which may make your load feel more manageable. Be flexible with yourself. Find routine, but be open to change, because as we know, our lives change rather quickly. It went from, going to work to being told we're not going in this week, we're not going in next week, to now 18 months later, we're still not going back into the office. So things can change. Process your emotions. Give yourself some space and time to recognize and feel however it is you're feeling. It's okay to be upset. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to feel a sense of relief. it's okay. And we don't give ourselves that permission to feel that way. We're perhaps thinking about how others may judge us or how we should be feeling rather than just being present about how we are feeling. Transitioning and adjusting back to life, nerves are common. This is still a very uncomfortable time because you don't know what's to happen. There's still fears. There's still a lot of unanswered questions. For some, they might be transitioning back to the office and working remotely, perhaps 2 days out of the week and in the office 3 days. And how is it going to feel to go back and forth from the office, or perhaps adjusting, going full-time back into the workspace? If you're feeling nerves, remind yourself it's most likely because you're challenging yourself. Get as much interactions with others as possible. Prepare your body. Give yourself some space and time to recognize and feel however it is you're feeling. Going from the lazy days of the summer, if they were lazy days or easier days, to the frantic pace of the fall can be a challenging transition. Again, there's a new routine perhaps in the fall, especially if you have children, or you're caring for a loved one. The week before the new school year begins, or wake up and go to bed on your work schedule as you normally would. Start your body out if it's summer days schedule. So again, finding that routine about what you're going to do for yourself physically as well as yourself mentally. So one activity that I would like to discuss is around goal setting. I say that these are the 6 R's, the right thing to do. So write clear and measurable goals. That's what you're going to start with. What is right for you? Write clear and measurable goals. 2, create a specific action plan for each goal. How are you going to reach this goal? Okay. 3, read your goals daily and visualize yourself accomplishing them. So create a vision board. I can show you an example of a vision board that I have. Write messages on sticky notes and put them around your mirror, perhaps, or around your light switch, on your desk, clearly so that you could see them. Writing down positive words of affirmation. Reflect on your progress to see if you are on target. Don't say, oh, a month from now, I want to be here, and you're not checking your progress on a weekly basis. You don't want to obsess about it on a daily basis, but you certainly want to see if you're on pace. And if you're not on pace, maybe perhaps you either need to figure out how to get back on schedule, or maybe you need to modify that goal that you have long-term. 5 is revise. Revise your action plans if needed. Again, as I stated, it's okay. It's, you can write it in pencil. It's not in permanent marker. You can change your goals and your plans. And 6, recognize and celebrate your wins. Every step is a win. You're getting it closer to your goal. So I think that's all very important. When I worked with parents that had children that would have tantrums, and the child would have a tantrum, every day, all day, I would say, well, now it's a win because they're having one tantrum a day. Then they go from one tantrum a day to one tantrum a week, and when they did have a tantrum again, it's okay. They're not reverting back. They're just, reminding themselves kind of what not to do. So what the parent's reaction is, it will help support the child on getting back on track. So that still works for us. We have to recognize and celebrate our wins, as small as they are, because if you don't celebrate yourself, no one else will. So when you're doing a goal setting activity, you want to think about your personal goals as well as your professional goals, and don't intermix them, especially now when our lives has been kind of all blended into one. So what are some professional goals that you want to set, and as well personal as well as professional goals? Creating a vision board. It's a blank slate, and it's your vision. You can put what you want on it. And again, you don't have to wait until January 1st, 2022 to do this. You could start it at any point next month, before Christmas, whenever you want. Paint that picture. So tips to kind of walk away with. Don't try to do all of it at once. All of the recommendations I stated, don't try to do all of them at one time. Pick one, perhaps. Try that for a few weeks and see if it works for you, because everything doesn't work for everyone. You know, journaling, some people may not like to write, but again, find what works for you. Find grace, allow yourself grace and time. Those are key components. Allow yourself to grieve. This has been a very trying year for loss of loved ones, loss of relationships, loss of finances, loss of positions, loss of coworkers. So allow yourself time to grieve. And remember to have downtime to recharge. Mental health matters. These are some quotes that I found. Demi Lovato stated, "You don't have to struggle in silence. You can be unsilent. You can live well with a mental health condition as long as you open up to somebody about it." Finding services is important. And there can be a social worker, a psychologist, a life coach, a professional therapist, counselor that can help you. And again, if you need resources, on our website at themeccagroupllc.com, we have a listing of services of agencies as well to be able to assist you. Dwayne Johnson spoke about depression. You're not alone. You're not the first to go through it, and you're not going to be the last to go through it. And that's why group therapy works for people, because they like that sense of community, that they're not alone in this struggle. And self-care is how you take your power back. Take care of yourself, just as the famous comparison to being on a plane and having to put the oxygen mask on. The flight attendant always states that you put on your mask on first before you put it on your loved one, because you have to make sure that you're breathing in order to help someone else breathe. And my business partner, Dr. Keisha Mack, and I believe in living fully. We have segments called Mecca Moments that are on our Facebook as well as on YouTube. And we have done a bi-monthly segment on a number of topics around the pandemic. Since the pandemic started, and actually kind of sparked this need to talk about emotional wellness, and that mental health should not be stigmatized, especially in the minority community. That it is okay to talk about suicide and relationship conflicts, and to talk about the need for mental health services for men as well as children. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram as well as LinkedIn, and we'll be starting a podcast soon. So this is my presentation for today. I am certainly open to receive questions and provide as many answers as I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Eubanks. It was such a pleasure to have you present to us today. I did put a message in the chat that we were going to open the question and answer, and I asked people to post there. I can't see the Q&A box. Can you see it actually?
Yes. I can. Oh,
Okay.
all
So
right.
if you have any questions, please feel free. You can post them in the chat or in the Q&A box.
I can certainly read some of the comments as well. I see that there are comments regarding loving to journal and finding outlets. That's wonderful. Never thought about video journaling, but it's not only for reality TV stars. It could be for you too.
So what is the hardest thing about taking the first step towards better mental health?
I think it's recognizing that you need help, or that typically is the first step. And I think even asking that question is recognizing and saying that it's okay. It's okay to, talk to someone. I always say as Claire stated, I'm a professor at Howard, and I encourage my students, I tell them every therapist needs a therapist. At some point in their life, everyone is going through something, whether it's transitioning from, an undergraduate program to a graduate school. It could be in a move. It could be getting a new job. It could be getting married. It could be losing a loved one. Everyone goes through a transition, and it's very, and we don't all handle it the same. And we go to our friends and family who comfort us and tell us kind of what they want to hear, but are they challenging us to perhaps deal with something that is a little bit more in depth? So going to seek professional assistance, knowing that that person is not going to judge you based on any information that you share with them. As scary as it may be, they will not judge you on whatever you reveal to them, because that confidentiality, that privacy, that level of trust has to be established in order to have a very good therapeutic relationship.
So Lynn is asking what is your favorite way to decompress?
Oh, I have a few, and that's the thing. You got to find what works. As I said, I love music, but I also realized that I enjoyed, and it was almost done by mistake when I started walking without my music. And I just like, oh, this is pretty nice. And I just did it, I enjoy doing activities with my daughters, but I also enjoy my me time. I'm a co-parent, and so when my girls are with their dad, I do me, I go out to, dinner with friends. I might cook myself a good dinner and just watch a good movie or kick up my feet. But I am learning to take care of myself. And I think the pandemic was very challenging even for therapists, because we had more clients calling. So we're also still dealing with our own, perhaps, elderly parents, or perhaps children. We all are, we're people, we're human, we're all dealing with it the same.
So Shanda mentioned in the chat that she always feels more productive after she's been able to get in a long run.
That's wonderful. That's good. That fresh air, especially after being in masks, breathing in that fresh air, that adrenaline, exercise. I always say swimming is also a great thing. I loved during the summer when the pools were open, we can go, swimming, because that's just a great full body exercise.
Yeah. Low impact, but high reward.
Yeah. Or you want to
and
just
then-
put on your bathing suit and lay on by the pool or
There
by
you
the
go.
beach. That's good too.
Yep. So there was a suggestion in the chat box about the app called Calm,
Yes.
that they offer a 1-year complimentary subscription to HR professionals. And there a couple of people have chimed in and said that that they have experience with it and they use that.
Oh, that's excellent. Thank you for sharing that. And that is the beauty of talking about this, because even myself as a professional, I don't know about all of the services, all of the apps. And that is what it gives an opportunity to share resources, to share information when you do have conversation, instead of people secretly, living this life and not wanting to talk about it.
Yeah.
But so thank you for sharing that.
Well, I think if there are no other questions, we're gonna just, again, thank you so much for your presentation today. I know for me, there were several points that you brought up that spoke to me. People who know me, if you would have asked me 2 years ago, my feelings on telework, I'm like, that's good for some people, not for me. I need to be in the office. I need to be with people. And so the fact that I am entering 18 months of full-time telework has me completely rethinking my idea on telework. And now I'm struggling with the thought of having to go possibly back into the office, because I love my little setup now. So as difficult as it was to change and to get into that full-time telework mindset, the thought of having to, change again also is somewhat daunting. So I think, for me, several of the things that you said really resonated, and your suggestion of the video, and that's come up a couple times, a video journal. I always think that videoing is a great idea. I mean, that journaling is a great idea. And I'm that person that buys a journal and I do 1 or 2 entries and then I stop, because I just lose my momentum. But your idea of doing a video journal, I think that is fantastic, because it's it can be as long or as short. So,
and it only takes someone just indicate about doing something for it, actually 30 days to create a habit. But the longer that you do it, for at least 66 days, it really becomes, kind of in part of your routine. And I think that's what, and when you get kind of step off of the routine, you can get back on,
Right.
it can be a challenge, but the more that you try to do it, and for one suggestion, final suggestion is, don't pressure yourself. Do it in increments, even from going from, as I indicated, kind of 4 hours of sleep, which, for me is common, to, 8 hours. I kind of move it up. So I'll say, okay, tonight I'm going to bed at this time, or, so you move it up, like maybe 15, 30-minute increments, instead of kind of doing that leaps and bounds, because that's what's difficult, kind of going from extreme to extreme. For some people, you have to know yourself what works for you.
Yep. Well, again, thank you so much. We're going to we have a few more minutes left, and we're going to use that to see if we have any board announcements. You certainly don't have to hang around for that.
All right. Well,
we appreciate again your willingness to come and share your expertise and knowledge with us, and I, for one, am very grateful for you today, because I think your message was amazing, and I think very poignant and just timely. So I really appreciate it. I know that we're probably going to have people ask about your presentation, and if that is going to be available, would that be something that we can make available to our people that attended?
Oh, certainly.
Okay, yes. Perfect.
All right. Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
So before Cheryl ends the webinar, generally we had, the program committee had talked about using a little bit of this time if there were any board members that had any announcements. It's a little bit challenging to do it in this venue, you know, when we're all together. If one of us has an announcement, we just sort of stand up and say it. So I think probably the best way to do it would be if one of the board members has something, if you can just give me a hint in the, oh, see, I knew Shanda was going to have something. So Shanda is asking that there are plenty of volunteer opportunities that are open. And if you go to the TOC website, you will be able to see those. And the board members are preparing for our board meeting, which will be next week. So Ellen is working on the agenda for that. And also there are plenty of opportunities to volunteer your time and talent for the annual institute this year, which is going to be in Wilmington, Delaware on May 1st through the 4th. So we are so looking forward to that event in person. And I know Shanda and her mateys are working hard to bring that to fruition. And finally, the last thing is, two things. Anybody interested in collaborating with TOC in partnering, you can reach out to Eugene. He's put his email in the chat box. And then Shanda wanted to let everybody know that the call for the annual institute proposals is going to be open this week through January 12th. So please go to the TOC website and take a look at the proposal form and get your submissions in as soon as possible. The sooner the better. All right, with that, I want to thank all of you for joining us. I think it was an excellent presentation. I'm sorry that I can't see all of you in video, but I see your names in the box. And so I appreciate your attendance and I wish you a wonderful rest of the day. Have a great day. Bye.